Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parishwarista Charasata Sri Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON Panrachai Bhuti Panrachai Jaguru Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Lantraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thai Gaur Premanande. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto number 3, Chapter number 16, titled Jay and Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. Text number 25. Yam va nayor damamadi sabhavan vidate. Yam va nayor damamadi sabhavan vidate. Vritim nuvata danuman mahi nirvyalikam. Vrittim nuvata danuman mahi nirvyalikam. Asma suva ya uchito dhariyatam sadando. Asma suvaya uchito dhriyatam sadando. Yena gasau vayamayung samahi kilbisena. Yena gasau vayamayung samahi kilbisena. Yam vanayo damamadi sabhavan vidate. Vrittim nuvata danuman mahi nirvyalikam. Asma suva ya uchito driyatam sadando. Yena gaso vayamayung smahi kilbisena. Yam vanayo damamadi sabhavan vidate. Vrittim nuvata danuman mahi nirvyalikam. Asma suvaya uchito driyatam sadando. Yena gasau vayamayung smahi kilbisena. Mataji? Word for translation, yam, which, va, or, anayo, of both of them, dhammam, punishment, adisa, O Lord, bhavan, your lordship, vidate, awards, vrittim, better existence, nu, certainly, va, or, tat, that, anumanmahi, we accept, nirvyalikam, without duplicity, asmasu, to us, va, or, ya, whichever, uchita, is proper, driyatam, may be awarded, sa, that, danda, punishment, ye, who, anagaso, sinless, vayam, we, ayungsmahi, allotted, kilbisena, with a curse. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Translation, O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons, or also to us, we shall accept without duplicity. We understand that we have cursed two faultless persons. Purport, the sages, the four Kumaras, now reject their cursing of the two doorkeepers, Jay and Vijay, because they are now conscious that persons who engage in the service of the Lord cannot be at fault at any stage. It is said that anyone who has implicit faith in the service of the Lord, or who actually engages in transcendental loving service, has all the good qualities of the demigods. Therefore, a devotee cannot be at fault. If sometimes it is found that he is in error by accident or by some temporary arrangement, that should not be taken very seriously. The cursing of Jay and Vijay is here repented. Now the Kumaras are thinking in terms of their position in the modes of passion and ignorance, and they are prepared to accept any kind of punishment from the Lord. In general, when dealing with devotees, we should not try to find faults. In Bhagavad Gita also it is confirmed that the devotee who faithfully serves the Supreme Lord, even if found to commit a gross mistake, should be considered a sadhu or saintly person. Due to former habits, he may commit some wrong, but because he is engaged in the service of the Lord, that wrong should not be taken very seriously. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chaksul Mritam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So welcome to Srimad Bhagavatam class. So we're currently reading from 3rd canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter number 16, titled Jay and Vijay, Cursed by the Sages. I'll read the translation again. O Lord, whatever punishment you wish to award to these two innocent persons, or also to us, we shall accept without duplicity. We understand that we have cursed two faultless persons. So this is the four Kumaras speaking to Lord Vishnu. So as we've been hearing over the last few weeks, we saw how the doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, they stopped the four Kumaras from entering. Then the four Kumaras, they got agitated and they were cursed, the two doorkeepers of Vaikuntha. At that time, Vishnu, he comes to save his two dear devotees from the anger of the four Kumaras. And now we are seeing, when Vishnu comes, he pacifies the four Kumaras by speaking very humble words. Vishnu comes and pacifies by saying to the four Kumaras that, glorifying their position as Brahmanas, how dear Brahmanas are to him. And Vishnu, he takes full responsibility over whatever has happened. Because whatever faults the servant do, the master, he is responsible. Because the master, he is supposed to take the responsibility of training his servants appropriately. So whenever any servant does something wrong, part of the blame also goes to the master. So in this way, Vishnu, he very humbly tells the four Kumaras that actually whatever has happened is all due to my fault. These are my servants, they are acting according to my instructions, and I haven't trained them properly. So therefore, whatever faults or pain they have caused you, it's actually my fault. So you please put the blame on me, and you please forgive these two devotees of mine. So in this way, Vishnu, he speaks very nice, sweet words to the four Kumaras, and with Vishnu's humility, the four Kumaras' heart becomes completely melted. And they immediately become pacified. They forget whatever anger, frustration, whatever ill feelings, grudges they had in the heart was completely pacified. Initially, their hearts melted when they saw the beauty of the Lord. When Vishnu, he comes, enters through the gate of Vaikuntha, and when the four Kumaras, they take darshan of the wonderful form of Vishnu, their hearts becomes completely melted. So this is one of the effects given in Bhagavatam of taking darshan of Krishna. Whenever we come to the temple, we bow down in front of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, we take darshan. Whatever negative feelings we have in our hearts will all get completely wiped away. And this is something we can practically experience every day. We just come, take darshan of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. Whatever stress, anxiety, bad feelings, negative thoughts, anything that's in our heart or our minds will get completely wiped away. Our minds will become completely absorbed in the beauty of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath. So this is what happened to the four Kumaras. The transcendental form of the Lord is said to be like a festival for the mind or a festival for the eyes. And one becomes so absorbed in seeing the beauty of the Lord, one just forgets whatever else is there. And then after Vishnu starts speaking, then the four Kumaras, they completely forget everything. And then the four Kumaras start thinking that actually it's us that are at fault. It's not Jay and Vijay who are at fault, but actually it's us. We got overcome by passion and ignorance. And actually these two doorkeepers, they're innocent. They're just the Supreme Lord's servitors. They're pure devotees of the Lord. They cannot be at fault at any time. It's actually us who are at fault. And now that's why the four Kumaras, they're repenting and they're telling Vishnu that actually by mistake we unnecessarily cursed your two doorkeepers, Jay and Vijay. Actually they're not at fault. They're your pure devotees. How can they be at fault at any time? They're just acting based on your instruction. So actually we're at fault. So my dear Lord, you please, whatever punishment you think is befitting, you please give that punishment to us. Actually we are the perpetrators, we are the villain. You please punish us. So in this way the whole situation completely turns. Initially the four Kumaras, they were angry at Jay and Vijay. They were upset that, who are these people stopping us from taking darshan of the Lord? But after Vishnu's entrance, their whole mindset completely changed and they become very humble. And then they start thinking that actually I'm at fault, not Jay and Vijay. So that's why in this verse they are saying to Vishnu that we realize that we have cursed two faultless persons. So they're realizing their mistake and they're begging the Supreme Lord, whatever punishment you think is good for us, for our spiritual life, you please give that punishment to us. So our hearts can be rectified. It is said in the Shastra that whenever any punishment or chastisement comes from the Supreme Lord or from the pure devotee of the Lord, one should take it as the mercy of the Lord or the mercy of the spiritual master. And it's meant for our benefit. In regard to the spiritual master, it's given that whenever the spiritual master is chastising us, the proper etiquette or the proper way we should receive the chastisement is that we should never argue back or never speak back. The general tendency is when someone is chastising us or finding faults with us, correcting us, the natural instinct is to defend ourselves, right? But no, Prabhu, or no, Mataji, actually I was doing this because of that. Actually I did this because of that. There was a reason I did like this. The general tendency is we speak back, we try and defend ourselves and explain to the other person why we did something which they think is inappropriate. So that is the general mindset, that we always open our mouths to defend ourselves, to speak back and defend ourselves. But the Shastras explain whenever the spiritual master is chastising us, pointing out some faults or correcting us, we should never speak back. We should just be completely silent and just take in the punishment or take in the chastisement without speaking any word, as the mercy of the spiritual master. So it's said, the spiritual master, he can be as soft as a rose or as hard as a thunderbolt. Both is the mercy of the Lord, or both is the mercy of the spiritual master. It's not that only when the spiritual master is speaking very nice, sweet words, encouraging us, I've been seeing how nicely you've been improving in your chanting. I've noticed how nicely you're taking responsibility in Krishna service. It's not that only these sweet words of encouragement given by the Guru is the mercy of the Guru, but even the thunderbolts, even the heavy chastisements, corrections that the spiritual master gives is equally the mercy of the spiritual master. In fact, the Shastras go on to say, the greater mercy of the spiritual master is the thunderbolt. The greater mercy of the spiritual master is the chastisement. Because the spiritual master, Prabhupada explains, he'll only chastise or correct those disciples who he has faith that their bhakti is strong and they can handle that chastisement. A new devotee, if you put a thunderbolt on his head, he will just get burnt out and he will leave. He will think, okay, this is not for me. He will just bloop and leave Krishna consciousness. So the thunderbolt of the spiritual master, he'll only bestow that mercy of the thunderbolt only to advanced devotees, only to disciples of his, who he sees they are very mature in Krishna consciousness, who he sees they can handle that heavy mercy of the thunderbolt. To neophyte devotees, to those who are just beginning Krishna consciousness, to those who are faith is not so strong, is a bit weak, for them he'll just speak sweet words. He'll never correct them, he'll never chastise them. Even if he'll correct them very gently, because he knows, their faith is not so strong, they're just beginning. If I put a thunderbolt on his head, he won't be able to take it. He'll bloop, he'll run away. So in this way, a spiritual master, he has a very tricky job. He has to encourage us, and as neophytes, as we practice devotional service, we'll be doing many mistakes. And it's a spiritual master's duty to help us rectify these mistakes so we can progress in bhakti nicely. But sometimes, before the spiritual master corrects, he has to always think, can this disciple, can this bhakta handle my correction or chastisement? If he thinks the disciple can't handle, then the spiritual master will be forced, regrettably, to not say anything or just gently point it out. So this special mercy of the thunderbolt of the Guru or the spiritual master, Prabhupada explains, only goes to those disciples who are very steady and advanced in spiritual life. So one way, Prabhupada says, you can judge how close you are to your Guru or how you are making very much good advancement in spiritual life is you see how much you're getting chastised by the spiritual master. Because the spiritual master will only give heavy instructions and chastisements only to those who are very close to him. Only to those he has that strong relationship and that strong faith that, yes, I understand, this disciple, he'll never mistake me. Even if I chastise him very heavily, he understands that I'm doing it out of love for him. He won't take it personally, he'll take it to his heart, he'll rectify himself. So only to these more higher level of devotees or disciples, the spiritual master chastises. So this is, Prabhupada says, is the special mercy of the Guru. The special mercy of the Guru is not the sweet words, the being as soft as a rose, but even more greater mercy than that is the chastisements of the spiritual master. So the 4 Kumars, they understand this, that the special mercy of the Lord is the punishment He gives to help His devotees in their spiritual life. So that's why in this verse, the 4 Kumars, they're begging the Supreme Lord that yes, previously, out of passion, ignorance, we unnecessarily cursed your 2 doorkeepers, mistakenly. Now we realize our mistake. Now you please, whatever punishment you think is good for our spiritual life, you please bestow that punishment upon us and we'll take it as your mercy. So that same mood we should have with our spiritual masters also. Whenever any corrections or chastisements comes, we should take it as the very special mercy of our spiritual masters, which is not bestowed upon everyone. Only to very special souls who can handle it, chastisement or corrections are given. So that's why whenever any corrections and chastisements come, the etiquette according to Shastra is we should never talk back, we should never speak back. That is the general tendency of the tongue. The Shastras explain that different senses, they have different urges. We hear from Nectar of Instruction, Vacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jiva Vegam, Udara Pasta Vegam. There is the urge of speech, the urge of the tongue, urge of the eyes, the ears, urge of the belly, genitals, so on and so forth. So different senses, they have different urges. One of the urges of the tongue, or the power of speech, is that out of false ego, we never want to accept that we did something wrong. That's why whenever someone finds any mistake or fault with us, the general tendency is we defend ourselves, because it hurts our false ego. According to our false ego, we all think that we are perfect. We all think whatever we're doing is perfectly right. We all think we're pure devotees. We all think we're not doing anything wrong. That, yes, I'm a nice devotee. I might not be pure, but most of the things I'm doing is nice. And that's why when someone finds some fault with us or gives us some correction or some advice or some feedback, the general tendency out of our false ego is to speak back, open our mouth and speak back and defend ourselves, or explain to the other person why we're not at fault and why actually they're at fault. But the etiquette according to Shastra is, whenever any correction or feedback comes from our superior authorities, we should just be quiet and just accept that chastisement as the mercy of the senior Vaishnava. Now, there's another scenario my Guru Maharaj explains. My Guru Maharaj says, sometimes, actually, in reality, we won't be at fault. But the senior Vaishnava, or the Guru, or the spiritual master, they think we did something wrong, but actually we're not at fault. But out of, they might have misheard or seen something, and they think we did something wrong. And out of that, they're chastising us. So my Guru Maharaj says, what should we do in these situations? Okay, if we're actually at fault and we get some correction, we humbly take it, apply in our life, and we improve ourselves. But what about those situations when actually we're not at fault and we're being misjudged or misseen or misheard by another senior Vaishnava, and we're getting corrected by them and chastised for something that actually wasn't our mistake? Maybe there was a group of devotees, they were assigned some service, and one of the devotees in the group, he didn't do a particular part of the service properly. So it's that particular devotee's fault. But the senior Vaishnava comes and thinks that actually you're at fault, and they give all the chastisement, all the heavy words onto us. At that time, we're being chastised or being corrected for something which actually we're not at fault. It's actually some other person's fault, but we're unnecessarily being chastised for that. So what to do in these circumstances? When we get corrected or chastised for something which actually we didn't do. In reality, we didn't actually do. In these circumstances, my Guru Maharaj says, also we should follow the same etiquette. We shouldn't defend ourselves, and we should simply be quiet and just take in the chastisement. Even though we didn't do it, even though we weren't at fault. And with what mentality should we take that chastisement? My Guru Maharaj says, we should think in our minds that many times in the past, I did so many mistakes, and my senior authorities, they didn't see me making those mistakes. And I escaped chastisement. Okay, so many times we'll notice in our life, many times we'll do something wrong. We'll get many services assigned, and while doing many services, we'll do many faults, which we know, okay, I screwed up in this, I screwed up in this. But there will be no one watching. Except for Krishna, no other devotees will watch us make that mistake. And we'll escape correction or we'll escape chastisement from the senior devotees. So at these times, my Guru Maharaj explains, when we get chastised for something we didn't do, we should think, so many times in the past before, I did so many mistakes, I screwed up so many times, I did so many blunders and I didn't get chastised, I escaped chastisement because no one was around to watch me. So now this is my karma, this is my reaction for all those times in the past previously from which I failed to do something properly but I didn't get chastised. So in that mood, one should take chastisement for something which even he didn't do, for something even if one is not at fault. So this is the proper way the Shastras explain one should take chastisement or punishment from the Lord or from his pure devotee. This is the special mercy of the Lord. Now in the purport, another thing Prabhupada points out is the 4 Kumaras, repentance for cursing Jay and Vijay. And Prabhupada is explaining that the general etiquette in dealing with Vaishnavas is that we should never find faults with Vaishnavas. And even if we see a Vaishnava doing something wrong, one should overlook it and instead just see the good qualities or see how that devotee is engaged in service. And Prabhupada is saying, the 4 Kumaras, they are now realizing their mistake. They saw Jay and Vijay apparently doing a mistake. Instead of overlooking that mistake and just seeing the wonderful devotional service Jay and Vijay are doing and taking inspiration from that, instead the 4 Kumaras, they just zoomed in on a small mistake Jay and Vijay were doing and they found fault with them and now they're repenting. So Prabhupada is saying we shouldn't do the same mistake that the 4 Kumaras did. Among Vaishnavas, due to our conditional tendency, we'll notice some faults, but Prabhupada is saying we should overlook those faults. In Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a nice verse explaining how devotees we should conduct ourselves. Vaishnava gunagrahi na dekhe dosa kaya mano vakya kare Vaishnava santosa. So 3 qualities this verse is explaining of our ideal Vaishnava. Number 1, Vaishnava gunagrahi. A Vaishnava should take in the good qualities of other Vaishnavas. And just like we have Bhava Grahi Janardhan, that's one of the qualities of Krishna. So Grahi means to take in. Bhava Grahi means Krishna, he takes in the bhava or the love and the devotion with which his devotees worship him. Just like we have the classical example of the wife of Vidura. Vidura, he invites Krishna for lunch, and Vidura's wife, out of ecstasy, she peels the banana, she throws away the pulp of the banana, and instead she feels the actual peel of the banana to Krishna. At this time, Krishna is not chastising or stopping his pure devotee, saying, what are you doing feeding me the banana peel? Don't you know this is not acceptable to be offered? This is inedible. No, Krishna is bhavagrahi. He is taking in the bhava or the love and devotion with which Vidura's wife is offering him the banana peel. And Krishna is happily eating banana peels in Vidura's house. On the other side, we have Duryodhana. He's inviting Krishna for lunch, and he's prepared big, 100 items. So many sabjis, rice, dal, chapatis, puris, pakoras, halwa, so many different sweets. He's created a big feast and he's inviting Krishna, please come to my place for lunch. Krishna refuses. Instead, he goes to Vidura's house. And what does he take for lunch? He takes banana peels. That's Krishna's lunch. So from this, we see Krishna is Bhavagrahi Janardhan. He is just taking in the mood or the intention with which his devotees offer him things. So in the same way, one of the qualities of a Vaishnava is, he is Vaishnava Gunagrahi, which means he simply sees the good qualities of other Vaishnavas, he takes inspiration from that, and that's what he absorbs, that's what he sees with his eyes. Second quality is, Na Dekaya Dosa. He never sees any faults with other Vaishnavas. Yes, different Vaishnavas have different faults or anathas. He sees, but he doesn't see, which means, although he'll see a particular fault, he won't meditate, he won't dwell on it, he'll just overlook it, he'll just ignore it. Just like Prabhupada, he gives the example, just like the moon. The moon is very nice and beautiful in the night sky. It's giving such beautiful light, and it looks very pretty and beautiful. But if you look very closely in the moon, there's some black patches. There's some shady patches on the moon. But we notice those black patches, but we don't meditate. The moon has this patch like this patch like that. No, we just take in the wonderful beauty of the moon, full moon, in the night sky. And it looks very beautiful. No one meditates on the black patches. But we just look at the good of the moon and absorb the beauty. In the same way, yes, to our eyes, we'll notice certain faults with other devotees. But according to Shastra, we should not dwell on those faults, not meditate on those faults, he's like this, or she's like that, or he did like this. If we meditate, we'll go backward in our spiritual life. We notice, but at the same time, we ignore it. So we see, but we don't see. Externally we see, but we don't meditate on it. We just ignore it and let it pass. Instead, we focus and meditate on the good things the other Vaishnavas are doing. So this is the first two qualities. And the last one is Kaya Mano Vaishnava Gunagrahi Na Dekhe Dosa Kaya Mano Vakya Kare Vaishnava Santosa. The third quality is that with our mind, body and words, with our heart and soul, we should dedicate our entire existence for Vaishnava Santosa, for satisfying the devotees of the Lord. As Krishna says in the Puranas, one who is my devotee is not my devotee. One who is the devotee of my devotees, he is my real devotee. So this is the third quality of a Vaishnava, that he gives his heart and soul to satisfy and to please the other Vaishnavas. So he sees, what service I can do for different Vaishnavas that will please them. For one particular Vaishnava, cooking nice prasad or giving them some nice prasad will please them. Another Vaishnava, reading and chanting with them will help them. Another Vaishnava, maybe he's trying to learn some new service, assisting them in that service will please them. So different Vaishnavas we can please in different ways. So using our intelligence, we should see how I can satisfy this Vaishnava, how can satisfy that Vaishnava, how can I can satisfy, all these Vaishnavas and collect blessings. So this is one of the qualities of a Vaishnava. Vaishnava is one who is very expert in collecting the blessings of other Vaishnavas. This is how we fast track our advancement in spiritual life. There are so many verses in the Shastras which talk about the wonderful glories of the dust of the lotus feet of the devotees, of the Vaishnavas. It's given by Jada Bharat in 5th canto, that the only way one can practice bhakti is if he has taken an abhishek, if he has taken bath in the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas. So only if we bathe ourselves with the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, Jada Bharat explains, we can practice devotional service, take to bhakti, pure bhakti, nicely. Same thing Prahlad Maharaj says in 7th canto. Only for those who have bathed themselves in the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, only they can practice bhakti. When Hiranyakashipu, he gets angry, at Prahlad Maharaj. He asks Prahlad Maharaj, what is the best thing you learnt in school? And Prahlad Maharaj is saying, best thing I learned is Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, the 9 items of devotional service. This is the best thing I have learned in school, my dear father. And then Hiranyakashipu, he gets so angry, he throws away his own 5-year-old son away from his lap. And out of great anger, he asked Prahlad Maharaj, where did you learn all this? Who has taught you? How did you learn all this, bhakti which you're talking about? What was Prahlad Maharaj's answer? Prahlad Maharaj explains to his father that this bhakti you're asking about, my dear father, is not something we can attain by our own endeavor, by the endeavor of others. This is something which can only come by the mercy of the dust of the Vaishnavas. Only for those who have taken the dust of the Vaishnavas and applied them on their forehead, only to those is bhakti bestowed, my dear father. In this way, Prahlad Maharaj, exact same answer he gives in 7th canto, that if we want to practice bhakti, we need to collect the blessings of all the other Vaishnavas. The only way we can be a Vaishnava is by collecting dust of other Vaishnavas. That is the way we can be a devotee, that is the way we can advance. The dust of the Vaishnavas is so much glorified that in 11th canto it's given that even Krishna, In Uddhava Gita, Krishna, he explains to Uddhava that my devotees, they're so great, my devotees, they're so exalted, that even I run behind the lotus feet of my devotees to collect their dust. So this is how wonderful or glorious is the dust of the lotus feet of the Vaishnavas, that what to speak of other devotees, even Krishna himself, even he worships the dust of his pure devotees' lotus feet. And even Krishna, he is willing to take that dust and put it on his head and apply it on his head to purify himself. So again, Krishna is showing his humility. So in this way, Prabhupada is explaining how we shouldn't find fault with others, but we should overlook the faults. Yes, we will see some fault. Okay, this devotee did this or did that, but we shouldn't meditate on it. We should just ignore it, let it come through one side and let it go out another side. Don't dwell on it in your mind. Just like Krishna says, right, in the Bhagavad Gita, Dhayato visayan pumsa sangas tesu pajayate. That you see something, but don't meditate on it. That's called dhayato. So just ignore it. Instead, you focus on all the good things other devotees are doing. And Prabhupada used to call it as the honeybee mentality. There's the fruit fly mentality and honeybee mentality. Fruit fly, what will it do? Fruit fly will always go to garbage and eat different garbage from different areas of the house. The honeybee will never go to garbage. The honeybee you'll always see, the honeybee will always be hovering around different flowers and taking in the nectar from different flowers. So that's what Prabhupada says we should do as Vaishnavas. Just like a honeybee is going to different flowers and taking in the nectar, the honeybee never judges, this flower, it's yellow in color, I don't like this color, I won't take nectar from this flower. The honeybee doesn't come to the rose and say, this rose plant, it has many thorns, in its stem. So I don't like this rose, I'm not going to come and take the nectar. No, the honeybee ignores the color of the flower, ignores maybe if they have thorns, ignores the other characteristics of flower. He just sees the nectar which is present in different flowers, and he dives deep and takes in the nectar from the rose plant. Even though the rose has thorns, he dives deep and takes the nectar from the sunflower. Even though sunflower is yellow and maybe the honeybee doesn't like the color yellow, he ignores these secondary characteristics and he just focuses on the nectar. So same way Prabhupada is saying, all the devotees, all the Vaishnavas of Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, they're just like beautiful flowers, all engaged in worshipping the Supreme Lord. And we should ignore apparent faults that they have. Instead, we should look at the wonderful services they're doing, look at the wonderful Vaishnava qualities they have, and we should meditate on that, take that in and take inspiration from that. It is given in Bhagavatam that whenever we see a good quality of another Vaishnava and we glorify that devotee, that Prabhuji or Mataji, you cook very nicely, or you sing very nicely, or you're very humble, or I've seen you're a very steady devotee. Whenever we notice a good quality of another Vaishnava and we glorify them and we serve that devotee, then as a result of that, the Shastras explain, 1/6 of all the good qualities of that Vaishnava we also get. So whenever a particular Vaishnava is doing some nice service and we glorify, appreciate them, and we do some service, render some service at the lotus feet, as a reaction of that, Bhagavatam explains, we will collect 1/6 of all of their good qualities. So this is another quick way to make advancement. You just go and serve different Vaishnavas. From one Vaishnava, you will collect 1/6 of all of his good qualities. You serve another Vaishnava, you will collect again another 1/6 of all his good qualities. Like this, by serving different Vaishnavas, you collect 1/6 of the good qualities of 10 devotees, 20 devotees, 30 devotees, 40 devotees. In this way, very quickly, we'll make so much advancement. Very quickly, we'll acquire so many good spiritual qualities. So this is again given in Bhagavatam on how to make quick spiritual advancement. On the other hand, if we find faults, it benefits no one. If we see the good of other devotees, if we glorify them, we benefit, we get 1/6 of their good qualities, and the person we're glorifying, they also benefit. Because when someone appreciates our service, someone says some words of appreciation, then we get encouraged to do that service nicely, more. Say we're learning how to play kartals, or learning how to play mridanga, and we play in the kirtan, and one particular devotee comes and says, Prabhuji or Mataji, you were playing mridanga very nicely today. saw you or heard you playing, you're playing mridanga very nicely, then those words of appreciation inspires us to continue practicing mridanga, continue practicing kartals. So whenever we appreciate another devotee's service, that inspires that other devotee to continue on in that service with more inspiration, with more energy and vigor. So we benefit ourselves by glorifying them because we get 1/6 of their good qualities. That devotee we're glorifying, he also benefits. He is inspired to do more service. And Krishna is also benefit. When Krishna is seeing this wonderful Vaishnava dealings, one devotee glorifying another devotee, Krishna, he becomes very pleased. Srimati Radharani, they become very pleased. So we benefit when we glorify and serve other devotees. The devotee we're glorifying and serving, they benefit. And Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, they're also benefiting. They're also feeling great pleasure and happiness. On the other side, if we find faults with other devotees, no one benefits. We don't benefit by finding fault with them. We could be committing mental offenses. We'll go backward in our spiritual life. Shri Shri Radha Gopinath, definitely they're not benefiting. They're getting displeased by seeing us finding faults with their devotees. So Krishna doesn't benefit, we don't benefit. And the other devotee whom we're finding fault with, they're also not benefiting. By pointing out their faults, telling them you're doing this wrong, that wrong, they're also feeling hurt in their heart. And they're also not benefiting. So in this way, the Shastras explain, by finding faults, no one benefits. We don't benefit, Krishna doesn't benefit. The person we're finding faults with, even he doesn't benefit. On the other hand, if we glorify and accept the good of other devotees and we serve them, Krishna benefits, we benefit, and the person we're glorifying, he also benefits. In this way, everyone is benefiting, everyone is happy. The only time, the Shastras explain, we should find fault or correct is if we're like in a position of authority for another devotee. For example, if we're someone's mentor or spiritual master, Shiksha Guru, and we're seeing those under us doing something wrong, then if we have a strong relationship with that person, only in those circumstances, out of love and affection, it is given, one can correct that devotee or point out his fault for their benefit. Otherwise, if there's no relationship in that scenario, then we should ignore. So that should be our default way we associate with devotees. Our default mode should be, we ignore the faults and we just see the good. But if we're leading something and there's some devotees under us and we're seeing them doing something wrong, then out of fatherly affection, we can point out those faults very gently and correct them out of fatherly affection. But by default, when it comes to dealing with other devotees, we ignore the faults and we just take in the good. In this way, the Shastras explain how we should deal with the Vaishnavas. Last point, Prabhupada is quoting Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, the famous verse, Apichet Sudacharo Bhajatamam Ananyabhak Sadhu Reva Samantavya Samyak Vevas Sitohisa. In this verse, Krishna is saying that my devotees, they're so great, even if by their previous conditioning or bad habits, even if they apparently seem to fall down or apparently seem to commit some mistakes, still one shouldn't take these mistakes or fall down very seriously. Instead, one should overlook this and still consider him as a sadhu or a saintly person, if he is continuing to practice his devotional service. So the same thing Krishna is explaining in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9. Prabhupada in Bhagavad Gita, he gives the example that when we practice bhakti, we're all conditioned souls, and when a conditioned jiva, he gives up maya and he starts to practice devotional life, it's as if he is declaring war on maya. Now, when we declare war on someone, that other person, naturally they'll retaliate. They'll also fight back with us. Just like Russia is declaring war on Ukraine. Ukraine is not just staying back, Ukraine is also fighting back and defending their country. So in the same way, Prabhupada explains in Gita that when you start practicing bhakti, when a jiva, he gives up sense gratification and it is coming closer to Krishna's lotus feet and taking up the path of devotional service of bhakti, it's as if that jiva is declaring war on maya. Which means maya won't just stand back and, just take it easy and say, oh, okay, wonderful, you practice bhakti nicely. No. When we're declaring war on maya, maya will also retaliate, maya will also fight back. Which means maya will throw different obstacles and challenges in front of the path of a practicing devotees, Prabhupada explains. So in this war with Maya, Prabhupada explains, sometimes we're all like soldiers fighting against Maya. And in the war with Maya, sometimes the soldier, he'll get wounded. Right? It's natural for a soldier to get wounded while he's in battle. So the soldier, let's say he gets a bullet in his arm and he gets injured, then he comes back home. He comes to the hospital, he takes a break, he cures himself, then he gets his hand bandaged up, and then after a few weeks of recovery in the hospital, with a bandaged arm, he again goes out to fight in the war. Now, what should a proper way of addressing this particular soldier would be? The proper way would be, this soldier, just see how brave he is. Even though he went to battle, he got injured, he got shot, okay, he came back, he took a break from the war for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, but just see how brave he is. Even though he got hit by the other enemy, even though he got injured, still he's so brave that after taking 2-3 weeks break, even with a bandaged arm, still he's going out again to fight with the other side. Now the other scenario is, if someone is not in proper consciousness or mindset, they will tease this particular soldier. They'll just see how, just look at this soldier, he got shot by the enemy. Just see, he has his hand bandaged up. What a sore loser. Look at me, I'm so strong. I didn't get hit by the enemy, but this soldier, such a worthless guy. He got shot. Look at his arm, he can't even move his arm. So if someone teases that soldier, that just see, he only has one arm, he's such a failure, I'm much greater soldier than him. Then one will think, this person, he's so arrogant, he's so arrogant, he has no sense. We would think very badly of that person. In the same way, Prabhupada explains that injured soldier who is coming back from war, getting recovered and again going to fight war, that is compared to the devotee who has a apparent fall down. He has an apparent fall down, he's practicing KC, he's fighting with Maya, Maya throws some obstacle, apparently for a short time he falls down, but then again by the association of devotees, he picks himself up, and then again continues to fight with Maya. What will you call that devotee? Will you tease that devotee? Oh, you fell down, or you did this mistake, or you went into Maya. If someone teases a devotee, again, it's completely inappropriate, it's very arrogant of us, it's actually aparad. What should our mood be? Just like the injured soldier going back to war, we would glorify that soldier. Just see how brave this soldier is. Even though he got shot in battle, he's come back, okay, he took few weeks off, but now look at him, even with a bandaged arm, he's going out to fight again. Just see how brave that soldier is. Same way Prabhupada is saying, that even if a devotee falls down, still if he picks himself up and continues to practice devotional service, then that devotee, he is most glorious. And he is a very brave soldier in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's army, that even though he did a mistake, he did a little slip, still just see how glorious he is. He is continuing to practice his bhakti. So we shouldn't tease that devotee or put that devotee down. Rather, we could encourage and glorify him. And we should see him as a very brave soldier in Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's army. So that's what Krishna is explaining in the 9th chapter of Bhagavad Gita. That even if my devotee, while practicing devotional service, commits some mistake or falls down, still one should ignore that fault or mistake and see how nicely he is continuing to practice his devotional service. Another verse similar to this, Krishna says in 11th canto of Bhagavatam, Uddhava Gita. In this verse, Krishna, he glorifies the path of bhakti. This verse, Krishna says to Uddhava that this path of bhakti is so glorious that while practicing this process of bhakti, one will never commit any blunder. And while traversing this path of bhakti towards transcendence, even if one is walking on this path blindfolded, with his eyes closed, still he will never trip, he will never fall down. What does this mean? On one side, let's say there's two people walking on a road and they're going to a particular destination. One person, he's walking with his eyes open. So he's seeing the path very nicely and he's walking nicely. He has all of his senses intact. With open eyes, he's traversing the path. The other person, he's blindfolded. He's blind, he can't see anything. So who will reach the destination first? Naturally, we will think the person who has his eyes open, who is seeing everything, he will very nicely traverse the road, go through the path, and attain the destination very quickly. Whereas the person who is blindfolded, he can't see anything. He doesn't know where he's going. There'll be some ditches in the ground, he'll trip over, he'll fall, he'll injure himself. So many obstacles are there for the person who is blindfolded. So naturally we expect that that person who is walking with eyes open, he will easily be victorious. The person who is blindfolded, he will trip, he will fall, he will make so many mistakes. There's no way he can reach the destination. But Krishna is saying the path of bhakti is so glorious, even if you're blind, even if you're completely blindfolded, still my devotee will never trip, my devotee will never fall down. So the next question is, how is it? Even though we're blindfolded, we'll never trip or fall down. Now the blind man walking in the path, if he tries to walk blindfolded on his own endeavor, naturally he'll trip, he'll fall, he won't know where he's going. But if he has a person next to him who's seeing and who knows the route very nicely and who is holding his hand, then by the strength of that friend of his who is in knowledge, even though he is blind, he can very nicely traverse the path and attain the destination. So that friend of the blind person is Krishna. So Krishna is saying this is the glory of bhakti, that one who becomes my devotee, I personally carry what they lack and I personally preserve what they have. And I personally guide my devotees. Even though my devotee might be blindfolded, even though my devotee will be completely ignorant with no knowledge of Shastra, no good qualities, no austerity, no good background, no good birth, even though my devotee has no mature qualifications, even though he could be considered as being blindfolded, being completely ignorant, still he will be victorious. Still he will attain the destination. Still he will never trip and he will never fall down. Why? Because I am personally right next to my devotee. I am holding the hand of my devotee, and at every step I am guiding my devotee. At every step I am giving intelligence from within his heart in how he should walk over different obstacles. So as the blindfolded devotee is walking across the path, there's a ditch, Krishna points out. There's a ditch over there. This is not good for your spiritual life. You walk the other way. Whereas on the other side, Krishna is saying, someone might be walking with his eyes open, but without Krishna's hand, without Krishna's guidance, even though he has all his senses intact, even though he has good birth, very austere, study the Shastras, a lot of jnana, a lot of tapasya, still because he doesn't have that favor of Krishna, because he's trying to do in his own endeavor, even though he has his eyes open, he will trip or fall down. Just like Bhagavatam gives the example, when you're going in the forest, and there'll be some places which externally from a distance it will seem that grass is growing. But under the grass there's a ditch, or under the grass there is water. And due to our imperfect vision, we will think it is just normal solid ground, but as we walk, we will fall into the ditch, or we will fall into the water. But if we have Krishna right next to us, guiding us, then Krishna will point out, hey, actually, that looks like dry land, that looks like solid ground, but actually there's a hole underneath. Don't go that way, go the other way. So this benediction, the yogis, the jnanis, the karmis, they don't have. Okay, they might have their eyes open, they might be very austere, they might have a lot of jnana, a lot of tapasya. Externally speaking, they have so many good qualities. But they're missing one thing, which is Krishna. They're trying to attain perfection on their own endeavor. So even though they're walking the path with their eyes open, still they'll trip, still they'll fall down. The Shastras explain. On the other hand, the devotee, although he might be completely blind, although he might have no good birth, no knowledge of Shastra, no tapasya, no austerity, still, because he has Krishna on his side, Krishna will help him overcome all obstacles. And even though he is blindfolded, Krishna promises, my devotee will never trip, my devotee will never fall down. In this way, in Uddhava Gita, similar verse Krishna gives to glorify the path of bhakti, to glorify his devotees. How his devotees, they never fall down, they never trip. Krishna is personally there to protect his devotees at all times, places and circumstances. Okay, we will stop here. Yes, Prabhu.